Project for today is going to be this Toro recycler push mower. It's a self-propelled. It's got the personal pace where you push this down farther. As you push harder, it goes faster. It's kind of a good feature on these. These are a really nice push mower. They were a pretty expensive one back in their day. But this one is making some noise out of the self-propelled. The bushing on top where the belt connects to the pulley's rocking back and forth, so that transmission is pretty well shot once that starts happening. So I have a used one of these, and the customer opted to put the used one in instead of a new one. It's about $100 cheaper for the used one, so to do the used one, I mean. So we're going to do that, and we're going to put a new battery in for the electric start. That does still work on here, but the battery is no good in it. But I'll fire it up and show you what it's doing so you can hear that noise. So it still works fine, but eventually that's going to wear and then the belt's going to end up popping off of it. So they wanted to just get it fixed. So I have another one in the shop. We're going to tear that one out first because I've only done like one of these where I tore the transmission out. So I want to tear the one out of the parts one so we kind of know what we're doing when we go to do this one. So this is the parts mower that I got. I'm not really sure where this one actually came from. This was one I think somebody just gave to me that I think the engine was bad or something in it, but the transmission seemed like it was still okay, and it just from testing it out, pushing the lever and pushing it forward and back, it locks the, you feel the drag on the wheels when you're doing that, so I think we're okay there. When we get it apart, we'll look at it a little closer, but I think I'm just gonna flip this upside down. There is still a little gas in there, so it might leak on us. Maybe we'll see what happens. Because we've got to pull these wheels off. And then we'll have to pull the blade off to get this cover for the belt. I'm pretty sure we have to get that cover off. That's a little bit rusty there. We'll have to clean that up. So we need to pull the gear off of each side. We'll get the belt off of it. And there's a spring here, but it looks like we can pull this shield off to give us a little bit more room. Looks like there's a bolt underneath this bag or two. I think it's just the 2 bolts here and then 1 in the back and then 2 on that side. So we'll flip it the other way and we'll pop that other wheel and those other 2 bolts off. You don't really want to be doing this with a mower you're going to be using. You're going to get, the gas is going to flood really bad and you're going to end up leaking oil out of the exhaust. But this is not one we're going to be running, so. There's another 2 3/8 bolts right up here. for that plastic guard that was under there. So that gives us access to the belt there. That was the guard. And then I was hoping this piece would come out of there, but there we go. And that piece was kind of in there. So I think we'll pull the belt off so I can have it this closer maybe. Get that cable off of there. I'll pull the snap ring off of here. That gear looks kind of rusty, so that might give us a little bit of fight pulling that off of there. It did actually seem like it moved that a little bit. So I think it'll pop off of there. It's just stuck. So then I think I'm going to pull the blade off. Just to give us a little bit more room. And then this little guard, the belt keeper. And this one is just rusted to the shaft, so we're not going to be able to get that completely off. I was hoping it would get far enough up here where we'd be able to get that spring off of there, but I don't think we are. I think I'll try to slide the transmission out first. I'll get something to tap down on that with. We'll take the snap ring off the other gear, and then we should be able to slide that. The axle slides through, which I should probably clean up that shaft a little bit, or it might give us trouble sliding through that bushing. Let's see if we can pry up on this gear a little bit. If I can get a pry bar under there, I might be able to tap down. It's coming. I'll grab some lube to spray on that. I sprayed a little lube on there, so we'll see. It'll... Yeah, that seemed to help. There we go. I'll spray a little more down in here. It's soaking down through. I was kind of waiting until I see it coming out the bottom. I was hoping that it would come out down here, but it doesn't really seem to be yet anyway. So I'm going to take the snap ring off of this side now. That one slid right off. I'll pull that little washer out of there. This side doesn't seem quite as rusty. I think there must be something else holding this. I think it's got to come out of the other side and then it kind of pivots up and out of there. It's a little easier to see this spring down here now too though when it's on this side. So I was going to try to get this spring off here. I might have to take the cable loose actually. Well, maybe we'll still have to wait until I get it out of there. If the belt wasn't on there, I know I could get it because I could go back farther here with it to turn it, tip it out of there. But that's a strong spring. Oh, there we go. Maybe. There, it popped out of there. You can just pop that cable out though. There's two little plastic clips, so you can pop that up and out, and then it'll go into this hole and you can run it through to be looser. So that probably would have been easier, but. So now I'll flip it on its other side and then we'll try popping it out of there. All right, I wire wheeled this off. We'll spray a little bit more lube in here, a little bit up in here. And we'll tap this down. Thought maybe it would go easy after that point, but oh, there it came out of there. Now we can get the belt off of it. I think I should have took one of these brackets off. Then I could have got this bushing up out of there to come straight up, but that takes off the whole part that holds the handle and everything, so I was hoping I could just do it without taking that off. But I'm not sure if we can. So I guess we're gonna have to take this bracket off of this side. Just 3 half-inch bolts. I shouldn't have been trying to cut corners. But now we know that for the other one, that you can't do that. Really all you gotta do is get it loose, because then it hangs at an angle. So I was able to get that out of there. So then there's a couple of, these are square headed screws we got to pull out because I don't want to use this belt. This is kind of a crappy belt in there, but this pulley, you can see I can wiggle on it. I can't move it back and forth, but it does spin pretty nice. And the axles seem to spin freely. As you go backwards, they should spin freely, otherwise you don't want it to be locked. And then if we spin, not sure if you spin both of them if you're able to. Well, there it's spinning them now, spinning the axles. And they're kind of locked. And then when you go backwards, then it unlocks, so then you can free spin again. It's kind of like a differential in there. So we'll make sure this one is the same one, which I'm pretty sure it is, and then we'll get to swapping it over to the other one. So I've got this one lifted up on my little electric forklift here. It looks like we've got a bunch of grass wrapped around here. We'll have to clean off of there. But this is going to be pretty much more of the same with pulling this transmission out of here, so I'll probably just do that quick off camera, and then I'll bring you back when we're putting the used one in here. So I ran into a problem with this used one. Is different. than the one we're trying to replace. This one has a plastic housing, which I thought wouldn't matter because it looked like it was pretty close to the same dimensions, but the one we're trying to replace has an aluminum housing and a bigger pulley. And this had, I took this off of here, but this had this piece on there like that, and we need this arm for the spring, and this piece doesn't work on this one. So, well, I mean, I might be able to switch that one, but the height here is different. So from the axle line up to there, from there to there is a lot different. So we can't use this one. So then I went on eBay and I did some searching, and I found they make an aftermarket transmission that was like less than $40. So I'll put a link to this in the description. And also, let me see if I can find, so this is a model number 20068, and the serial number is 28006882, and it's a 2008 model. So apparently somewhere along the lines they changed, and that other one was a 20334 model. So I'm not sure where along the line they changed, but they did change the transmissions at some point. So this did not come with anything at all. I thought it might at least come with the little keys and the springs. There's a spring that goes in here. And that's what else was different about this other one. This one was had a flat spot in the shaft for the wheels to grab onto, and then it did the ratcheting. It was like a differential in there, so you could spin one side and not the other. Where with this one, let's see if I could do it with one hand. If you spin the axle, it spins all the time. It's always in gear. So you get your neutral from those keys and the springs, how it moves up and down. So when you go, if you want to pull the mower backwards, it doesn't get stuck with this differential being locked into gear all the time. So we'll swap the pulley over. There's a spacer under the pulley that adds a little bit of height to it, and then this piece here, and then we'll get it put in the mower, and then we'll deal with the springs and all that stuff. They're still down in there on this one, so I'll have to pick those out of there. So this has a washer on top. I'll set that off to the side, and then here's the spacer. That sits on there like that. I already had this apart because I was trying to swap pieces back and forth, and this doesn't have threads in it, but these are kind of like a self-tapping bolt, so that'll make threads. I'll put a link to this transmission in the description. It's was kind of surprising that they actually made an aftermarket one for these. These were a fairly popular mower. So I kind of went in and out like I was running a tap or something. It should be tight enough. I wasn't really squishing it down at first, but those are old, so they're probably dull. I probably should have put some new bolts in there. But so as you can see, this shaft has a tiny bit of play, and this shaft has a ton of play. So that was our issue there. I'm thinking this top bearing went, but there must be something underneath that went also to make it that loose. But I will wait to put this top nut on, I think, till we get our belt in there, as I had it just kind of leaned out. and then we'll get it slid up in there. So this one I did end up taking both of these side panels off. Oops, it goes like this. So line up those two holes, and then there's a bolt back there. And then it was just easier to just slide these off and then drop the transmission out. So we still have our belt up in here. I probably wouldn't have had to take off quite so many covers, but I was gonna see if I could get the belt off of the crank, but that would involve taking a lot more stuff apart, since this one actually has, you can disengage the actual blade on this one, where that was the difference on the other one that I took the parts off of, was that did not have that type of blade. It was just, the blade was on all the time when the engine was running. So I don't think you can see very good from that angle, but just bear with me for a second while I get this together. It's kind of a lot of stuff to hang on to. And then I'll show you how I got here. Trying to keep the belt out of the pinch point there. Trying to hold this axle as I do this also so it doesn't spin. There we go. There's just a little bit of slop still. I don't know if an OEM one would have that. But here's how I got it. I just slid the belt down inside those keepers, and then we'll be able to put it back up in there now, and then put those end plates on. I am going to hook this spring up here. It goes in this hole here before I get it up in there, and then we'll slide them side panels on. So it's kind of hard to get you in here to get a good angle of everything, being it's kind of dark underneath here. Trying to hook that spring up. There we go. And then kind of put that up like that. And I'll slide this piece on the end. And there is a nut that goes under here. Kind of just temporarily hold it in place. And then there is a pin here for this this chute on the back that has to go through, and then that's the bolt that I was talking about. And then these two went into a plastic piece that goes underneath here. There's a guard that goes over all this stuff, so I'll have to put that back on once we get that far. So I did put this plastic guard back in, just kind of loosely. There's one screw that goes up in it right here, and that one is a little bit longer than all the rest. These are the screws that go into all the plastic stuff, and this one is actually, these are shorter than that one. All the rest of them are about the same length, the ones that go into the plastic stuff. So now I think we can put this other plastic piece in there, and then we'll do that other side panel that goes there. So this back one is a little bit tricky. I've got to lift the mower up here a little bit. And it's got to go under. It's got to go under or above the axle, I guess, and then kind of up like that. Trying to line up those holes there. And now I should be able to put that end panel on. I'll maybe put the screws in this one before I do that. So that guard had 2 screws underneath this chute in the back that went up like that. And then on the sides, there's bolts that go in through these side panels. And they have this little spacer that goes in on the back side in there. You can see the holes bigger in there where they go. So we'll slide this one on now. Again, like I said, we gotta line up this pin here. And there's a bolt here that goes in. The nut on the back side. Now we can still kind of slide the axle side to side. Kind of trying to get it centered. And then I'll see if I can line up the bolts for here. So I got the spacer piece. Bolt like that. And a nut on the back. One more. The spacer stayed in that upper one. It's not the easiest to get your hands up in here. This is why a lot of these push mowers, self-propelled ones, get junked when the self-propelled quits working, just because it is kind of labor intensive. Oh, that should have went through the other way. Like that. I don't know why I was trying to put the bolt up through. So like that, and then I'll put these 2 in on the other side and then we'll tighten them down. So I'm going to tighten the smaller one first, since that's got a square head on it. It kind of will line it a little bit. And I'll get up in here with the wrench to hold that nut. Pull that tight. I'll do the same on the other side. And then we'll move to putting the rest of the bolts in. They go in through the top for the plastic guards down there. So there was 2 bolts for that plastic cover. They were underneath this battery tray, so they are kind of hidden. So just know you got to take that battery tray out to take that cover off. And then these just go into plastic. So you don't want to tighten them too tight. And then that should be the last of the bolts that went in through the top. It was those 2, and then the other one went in through the bottom, and then the other 2 were back here underneath this flap. And these were, I'm not sure if those are actually what's supposed to be in there. There's a couple of Torx sheet metal screws in there, so I'll have to put that back on. But for now, I think, and then we'll get the wheels started putting back on there and the gears and everything. So on the axle side of things, we had one washer with this little tab in it. It was on the inside here. And then there was this little clip. It'll just go on there like that. And then we'll have to grab the little springs out of the other axle. So these are the little springs that go in this hole here. You don't really want to put grease on them. This one had a lot of grease on the springs in there. And a lot of people think you need to grease this part, but you really don't. It makes everything gummed up, so it ends up having these keys that go in here get stuck. And that's what a lot of people will bring push mowers to me for, is that when the self-propelled is going, it works fine, but when they let off it, they can't freewheel it. So this key just sits in there like that. But I am going to put some oil in here. You can use like a super thin grease, almost like a Vaseline or something would work, but I'm just gonna put this 3-in-1 oil in here. It'll kind of just keep everything a little bit lubricated, but it's not gonna attract a bunch of junk in there. So that'll be like that. And then I'll clean up these gears a little bit. These also have some grease in there. And then we'll get that put in there and they should ratchet. This one actually has a L on it for, this is the left side. And then this one has an R on it. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what makes them rotate the right direction, because you want to be able to pull the mower backwards while you're mowing. So I think it went like this. I'll have to double check because it's shaped differently for which way it goes. So I'm refilming this because I did it backwards. So there's doesn't matter which side the gear is on, they're reversible, but the left, it says a L here, this is the left side, so you want the L facing towards you. Put that on like that, and then you want it to ratchet backwards, and then we'll put our 2 washers on here. And then these clips, it's kind of hard to see, there's a little bit of grease in this one, but there's a little tab that faces down, and you want to put that down in the groove in the axle. So that's the groove I was talking about, the keyway that's in there. And then you can, I've heard, grease it through this end hole. I'm not sure if this one was that way, being this is not an OEM one, but like I said, I don't like to over grease these because they'll get gummy and it won't ratchet anymore, and then you'll end up with problems. So I just like to just leave it alone and either use an oil, and then make sure you do it like yearly, lube this up, or just a very light greasing. But now I'll do the other side and then we'll continue on. So we'll put the wheel on here. You can put a little lube on this bolt that goes through the wheel also. So you want to be able to make sure that it does still move backwards, but then it ratchets going forward like that. So if it doesn't do that, if it only ratchets going backwards and you can't push it forward at all, that means that you have that gear flip-flop, so you need to take it out and flip it around. Like I said, this is the left side, so the L on the gear faces towards you, and the other side will be the right side, so the R faces out towards you. So another thing that can happen on these mowers is this bolt here can get worn on the back side here where it connects to the plate. You can put a little washer, a very thin washer on there to space it out a little bit if the wheel is spinning hard after you tighten it down. But now we have it's ratcheting forward, and yet we can still spin it backwards just like the other side. So I'm just gonna kind of lift this up and align the screws here. That'll be good. So this was the battery that I got. This one I did get this off eBay also. There wasn't much for replacement batteries for these that I saw. This one's a RG1234T1. It's a 12-volt battery, but I'll put a link to that in the description also. I've never tried this style battery or brand, so I'm not 100% sure how good it is, but we'll give it a try and see. I'm not sure. I think that wire just went like that, where it tucked in over here, and then this just ran either behind it or in front of it. I'll put the cover back down like that. And then we'll get that blade sharpened up. So if you pulled your blade off and all this stuff fell apart and you don't remember how it goes, it's pretty much this piece here is the little guard that goes up by the belt, and then this aluminum piece, and then your blade, and then this piece. So, and then it goes up like that. So your blade, the curvature of the blade faces up towards the deck on pretty much every lawnmower blade you're gonna put on. So just so you remember that. So we'll get this one put up there. So it's a little bit tricky to get everything lined up. I think I'll put this piece on there first if I can. And that aluminum piece. It's kind of a terrible design. It makes it a lot more difficult to take your blade off than it needs to be. I'm probably in your way here, but so like that. And then we'll tighten it up. Those are self-locking nuts, so they go hard most of the way. So that should be okay. I'm just making sure it's not rubbing on that cover, but I think it should be fine. So now I think we're ready to pull it down and test it out. So I've got it outside. I checked the oil and that was fine in it. So we'll see if this electric start works now. Fired right up pretty good. Put the blade on. Well, that seemed to work really good. I could pull it backwards and I could free roll it forward, and it seemed to mow pretty nice. So I think this one is going to be good to go. I'll blow it off with some air a little bit. I got it a little bit dirty just doing that little bit of mowing. It's kind of dusty out here, but that's going to do it for this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.